There comes a moment in your life when you stop and ask, is this really who I am meant to be? That moment rarely comes with fanfare or clarity. Instead, it whispers. It appears in subtle patterns, small nudges, signs that something deeper is shifting inside you. And the truth is, if you recognize these 7 signs, you're not lost. You're waking up. 1, you feel strangely uncomfortable where you used to feel at ease. Your job, your relationships, your daily routines, they haven't changed. But something inside you has. That discomfort isn't a problem to solve. It's a message. It's your soul saying you've outgrown this version of you. Growth always begins with a little discomfort. Don't run from it. Lean in. 2, conversations that once excited you now feel hollow. The small talk feels smaller. The gossip feels irrelevant. You crave depth. You want purpose in your words, meaning in your interactions. That hunger for depth, that's a sign you're maturing. It means your values are evolving. When you notice that shift, you're not becoming distant. You're becoming intentional. 3, you're drawn to solitude. Not loneliness, solitude. You start declining invitations that don't feel right. You spend more time reflecting, thinking, reading. The world may say you're pulling away, but you're actually pulling inward. Solitude is not a retreat. It's a reconnection. In the silence, you're learning who you really are without the noise of everyone else's expectations. 4, you question your why more often than usual. Why am I doing this work? Why am I in this relationship? Why am I chasing this goal? These questions aren't signs of confusion. They're signs of awakening. They mean you're moving from autopilot to conscious living. When the why becomes unclear, it's not time to panic, it's time to pause. 5, you feel emotionally sensitive, but in a new way. You tear up more often, feel more deeply, notice things you once overlooked. That sensitivity isn't weakness, it's presence. It's empathy. It means your heart is opening. You're no longer numbing yourself to get by. You're choosing to feel, to move forward. 6, you sense that something big is about to change, but you can't explain it. It's that gut feeling, that quiet tension, like standing on the edge of something new. There's no evidence yet, no certainty, just an internal shift. Trust it. Growth is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. What you're sensing is the pull of your potential. 7, you stop blaming others and start asking, what can I change in myself? This is the most powerful sign of all. When you stop pointing outward and begin looking inward, you take your power back. Responsibility replaces resentment. Ownership replaces blame. And that, more than anything, marks the beginning of transformation. So if you recognize these 7 signs, don't ignore them. Don't dismiss them. And certainly, don't be afraid of them. They are not warning signs. They are welcome signs. They mean you're ready. Not ready to be perfect. Not ready to have all the answers. But ready to ask better questions. Ready to build a life that aligns with your values. Ready to lead yourself. Not just follow what's expected. Most people sleepwalk through life. You're waking up. And the moment you honor these signs instead of resisting them, that's when everything begins to shift. You're not breaking down, you're breaking through. Self-awareness is the foundation of personal growth. It's easy to overlook, often dismissed as something abstract or philosophical. But in truth, it's one of the most practical tools you'll ever develop. Everything you do, every decision you make, every relationship you build stems from how well you know yourself. The more clearly you understand your thoughts, feelings, triggers, and values, the more control you have over your direction in life. Without self-awareness, you move reactively, responding to circumstances instead of creating them. You operate based on outdated programming, old habits, inherited beliefs, and survival instincts that may no longer serve you. But when you become self-aware, you shift from reacting to reflecting. You begin to question your assumptions, recognize your emotional patterns, and take ownership of your behavior instead of blaming others or external events. Self-awareness doesn't mean obsessing over every flaw or trying to be perfect. It means noticing without judgment what's going on inside you. It means asking, why did I respond that way? Or what do I really want in this situation? It's about being honest with yourself in the quiet moments when no one is watching and there's no performance to uphold. It's in these moments that you come face to face with your truth. And while that truth might sometimes be uncomfortable, it's always valuable. Because clarity is power. When you know who you are and what drives you, you no longer have to guess how to live. You can align your actions with your values. You can stop chasing things that don't matter and start investing in the things that do. Self-awareness is also the beginning of emotional intelligence. It allows you to recognize your emotional states in real time, which means you gain the ability to choose your response rather than being ruled by impulse. Think about how many conflicts, regrets, and mistakes arise simply because someone didn't pause long enough to understand their own emotions before reacting. Anger, insecurity, fear, they aren't inherently bad. They're signals. But without self-awareness, those signals become detonators. With self-awareness, they become indicators, opportunities to learn, reset, and redirect. The path to self-awareness isn't glamorous. It's not about meditating on a mountaintop or reading a shelf full of self-help books. It's about consistently paying attention. It's in the way you observe yourself during a hard conversation, the way you notice your energy change in certain environments, the way you sit with discomfort instead of numbing it. It's in the journal you write at the end of a confusing day, in the honest feedback you're willing to hear even when it stings, and in the patterns you begin to spot in your choices, your moods, and your relationships. It's slow, it's personal, and it's deeply transformative. When you become self-aware, you unlock the ability to grow intentionally. You're no longer improving blindly or trying to keep up with others' definitions of success. You're choosing to grow from a place of alignment. You become more accountable, more compassionate, and more confident. Not because you're better than anyone else, but because you're no longer trying to be anyone else. That's freedom. And from that freedom comes clarity of purpose, better decision-making, and stronger relationships. Self-awareness also acts as a filter. It protects you from falling into the trap of pleasing others at the cost of betraying yourself. When you know your values, your boundaries, your limits, you start making decisions from your center rather than from fear. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You stop overcommitting, overcompensating, overthinking. You start trusting your intuition, not because it's always right, but because you've built a relationship with yourself that's rooted in honesty. Growth begins the moment you're willing to look inward, to observe your thoughts without running from them, to understand your behaviors without excusing them, and to meet your own eyes in the mirror with both curiosity and courage. Self-awareness won't always make life easier, but it will make life clearer. And clarity is the first step toward real, lasting change. It's the mirror that helps you see who you are becoming and the compass that guides you toward who you want to be. The signs we often ignore are signals pointing to deeper truths. Most people are conditioned to brush aside the subtle cues their mind and body give them. A headache is blamed on dehydration, fatigue is explained away by a bad night's sleep, a sense of dread before work is excused as Monday blues. But beneath those surface-level justifications lies something more important, information trying to reach you. We live in a world that glorifies business and constant motion. In that pace, we stop listening. We stop paying attention to ourselves. But your discomfort, your resistance, your inner friction, those are not inconveniences. They are messengers. They are trying to bring your attention to a part of your life that's out of sync. When you start to notice repeated feelings of restlessness, disengagement, or tension, it's easy to minimize them. You tell yourself everyone feels this way. You convince yourself it's just a phase. But patterns don't lie. And repetition is rarely random. If the same unease keeps showing up, if the same frustration keeps knocking on your door, it's not bad luck, it's a sign. Something inside you is not aligned with something outside of you. It could be your environment, your habits, your relationships, or even your sense of identity. But whatever it is, the only way to find clarity is to pause and pay attention. Signals often begin as whispers, a sense of not belonging, a repeated hesitation before speaking, a reluctance to show up fully. These aren't personality flaws. They are signs that somewhere along the way, a part of you has been compromised. And the longer you ignore them, the louder they get. That hesitation becomes anxiety. That whisper becomes burnout. The discomfort becomes a crisis. But it never starts that way. It starts with small signals. And the people who grow, the ones who transform their lives, are the ones who learn to hear the message before it turns into a breakdown. Ignoring signs doesn't make them go away. It only delays the moment of reckoning. There's a cost to pretending everything is fine when it's not. That cost is often paid in mental health, relationships, energy, and self-respect. The longer you pretend, the more distant you become from your own truth. And when you lose touch with your truth, your life begins to run on autopilot. You go through the motions, you meet expectations, you perform roles, but inside you're disconnected. And over time, that disconnection drains you. You forget what you wanted. You stop asking why you're doing what you're doing. You become someone others admire, maybe, but someone you barely recognize. Listening to the signals doesn't mean quitting everything or making dramatic changes overnight. It means becoming honest about what's working and what's not. It means having the courage to admit that something feels off. Even if you don't yet know why, it means slowing down enough to feel. It means creating space to ask yourself questions you've been avoiding. It means not silencing the discomfort, but sitting with it long enough to understand what it's trying to teach you. Sometimes the signs come in the form of resistance. You keep procrastinating on a task, not because you're lazy, but because deep down you know it doesn't matter to you. Sometimes they show up as exhaustion, not because you're incapable, but because you've been overcommitting to things that don't align with your values. Sometimes the signal is a deep sense of boredom, not because you lack ambition, but because your potential is being stifled. These feelings are not problems, they are data. They are trying to help you realign your path. The most meaningful changes often begin with the smallest observations. That's how awareness grows. That's how clarity emerges. When you stop seeing discomfort as an enemy and start seeing it as guidance, everything changes. Your job isn't to silence the signs, but to interpret them. Not to deny the signals, but to decode them. Life is always speaking to you through your emotions, through your habits, through your tension and your longing. If you're willing to listen, it will always lead you back to the truth. And the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is always the beginning of real growth. Your energy doesn't lie. Follow to find alignment. Energy is one of the most honest indicators of how close or far you are from your true self. You can force a smile. You can say all the right things. You can show up where you're expected, but your energy always tells the truth. You know this intuitively. You've felt it. That moment when you walk into a room and your whole body feels heavy for no reason. Or when you talk to someone and leave the conversation more drained than when you started. Conversely, There are moments when time seems to vanish, when you're so engaged in what you're doing that you forget to check your phone, when you walk away from a person or a task feeling more alive than before. That's not coincidence. That's data. That's your energy trying to tell you something. We are often taught to ignore these signals, to prioritize logic, duty, and practicality over how something feels in our body or spirit. We're told to push through, to grind, to hustle, no matter how much resistance we feel inside. But what happens over time is that we start to lose touch with ourselves. We begin to think it's normal to feel numb. We convince ourselves that exhaustion is a badge of honor. But energy doesn't lie. If you're always tired, always anxious, always unmotivated, it's not a character flaw. It's a misalignment. You're probably spending too much time in places that drain you and not enough time in places that recharge you. Your energy is your internal compass. It's the part of you that reacts before your mind has a chance to rationalize. It's the lift you feel when you're being authentic. It's the spark that comes alive when you're doing work that matters to you. It's the calm that washes over you when you're with people who see and accept you fully. We're taught to ask, what should I do? Or what's the right thing to say? But a more powerful question is, how does this make me feel? Not in a shallow, comfort-seeking way, but in a deep, discerning way. Does this choice expand me or shrink me? Does this person energize me or deplete me? Does this environment nurture me or suppress me? The answers to these questions are usually already inside you. You've just been trained not to listen. Following your energy doesn't mean chasing temporary highs. It means becoming aware of what's sustainable. It's recognizing that your energy is the most valuable resource you have. When you begin to honor it, you become more intentional. You stop saying yes to things that sound good but feel wrong. You stop trying to be everything to everyone. You stop pushing yourself into molds that were never meant for you. And instead, you start creating a life that flows, not because it's easy, but because it's right. You might notice that some things you once loved no longer feel energizing. That doesn't mean you failed or lost your passion. It means you're evolving. It means your values are shifting, your interests are deepening, and your spirit is moving you towards something new. The same is true for people. There may be relationships that once lit you up but now feel forced or one-sided. Letting go doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about your integrity to stop pretending. It means you're creating space for connections that match your current vibration. Paying attention to your energy also sharpens your intuition. Over time, you begin to recognize patterns. You start noticing who brings out the best in you, what kind of work excites you, which environments foster your creativity. This awareness becomes a filter. It helps you make decisions that are not just smart, but soul-aligned. You stop chasing validation and start choosing vitality. You stop living for approval and start living in alignment. Your energy will guide you if you let it. It will nudge you toward the people, places, and paths that are meant for you. It will warn you when you're off course and affirm you when you're on the right track. But it takes courage to follow it, because sometimes your energy will ask you to walk away from what's familiar. Sometimes it will lead you into uncertainty. Sometimes it will tell you to slow down when the world wants you to speed up. But if you trust it, if you listen, it will never betray you, because your energy doesn't lie. It's the most honest language your life will ever speak. Isolation can be a sign of evolution, not weakness. It's often misunderstood and mislabeled as a step backward, a sign that something is wrong. People ask if you're okay, if you've become distant, if something happened. And sometimes even you begin to wonder the same. But what many fail to realize is that growth often requires separation. It demands space, not because you're broken, but because you're breaking away from what no longer serves you. When you begin to evolve internally, your external environment doesn't always catch up right away. That creates tension. That tension often makes you retreat, not out of fear, but out of necessity. You instinctively pull back from conversations that no longer resonate, from people who no longer understand, from patterns you no longer wish to repeat. It's not rejection of others, it's a return to yourself. When you're in the middle of internal transformation, it's natural to feel disconnected from the noise of the world. You start noticing things you didn't see before. You become more sensitive to the shallow, more intolerant of the inauthentic. You begin craving solitude, not because you're lonely, but because it's the only space quiet enough for you to hear your own voice again. And in that silence, you don't always feel confident. In fact, it can feel confusing. You might doubt your progress. You might miss the comfort of distraction. But what's really happening is that you're clearing space. You're making room for clarity, for truth, for direction that isn't borrowed from others, but born from within. This kind of isolation isn't passive. It's not laziness or apathy. It's intentional stillness. It's the space where reflection takes root, where vision starts to grow. The world might not understand it because it doesn't look productive from the outside. There are no metrics for solitude, no applause for disappearing to do the deep inner work. But it's in these periods of quiet that the most meaningful shifts begin. You start to notice who you are without the roles you play, without the expectations you've been performing under. You question what you believe, and more importantly, why you believe it. You confront old stories that no longer define you. You dismantle illusions of who you should be in order to become who you actually are. People may misinterpret this phase of your journey. They may think you're withdrawing or giving up, but you're not pulling away from life. You're preparing to re-enter it with more purpose. You're not becoming less social because you don't care. You're becoming more selective because you finally do. You care about your energy. You care about your peace. You care about the integrity of the space you allow others to enter. That's not weakness. That's discernment. And it only comes when you've spent enough time alone to understand what you truly need. Isolation often precedes reinvention. It's the cocoon before the wings the night before the dawn. But because it feels so unfamiliar, so quiet, so unlike the noise we've grown used to, many people try to escape it too quickly. They rush back into relationships, into distractions, into obligations that feel familiar but no longer fit. They panic in the silence instead of trusting it. They miss the gift of solitude because they fear being alone with their own thoughts. But if you can stay in that space just long enough, if you can resist the urge to fill the void too quickly, something beautiful begins to happen. You begin to hear your intuition again. You begin to rediscover your values, your voice, your vision. You begin to rebuild yourself, not from expectations, but from truth. The evolution you're experiencing requires space. It requires a clearing of the old to welcome the new. It requires solitude not as a punishment, but as preparation. The version of you that is emerging is wiser, more grounded, more aligned. And it cannot be born in the same noise that kept you disconnected. It needs quiet. It needs stillness. It needs the courage to stand alone, even when others don't understand why. So if you find yourself in a season of isolation, don't fear it. Don't rush it. And most importantly, don't judge it. It's not evidence of failure. It's not a detour. It's not regression. It's a sacred part of your journey. It's the pause that prepares the next chapter. And when you emerge, you'll do so with a deeper sense of self, a clear direction, and the kind of quiet strength that only comes from spending time alone with your truth. When discomfort becomes your guide, transformation begins. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs. We associate it with danger, with failure, with something to escape from. But the truth is, discomfort is not the enemy. It's the signal. It's the evidence that something in your life is stretching, shifting, evolving. Growth is never born from ease. Comfort zones might feel safe, but they are often cages in disguise. They keep you repeating patterns, clinging to familiar outcomes, and settling for less than you're capable of. The moment you begin to feel discomfort is often the exact moment your next level is calling. That tension you feel, the uncertainty, the pressure, that's your life inviting you to expand. Discomfort shows up in many forms. Sometimes it's emotional, like the unease that creeps in when you're in the wrong relationship, or the quiet restlessness that surfaces in a job that no longer challenges you. Sometimes it's mental, like the overwhelming doubt that floods you when you step into a new opportunity. And sometimes it's physical, like the fatigue that follows burnout, or the heaviness that sits in your chest when you betray your own values. In each case, the discomfort is not random. It's not there to punish you. It's trying to direct your attention to a part of your life that is no longer aligned with who you are becoming. We've been taught to soothe discomfort instead of study it. When something feels hard, we want to numb it. We distract ourselves with entertainment, overwork, food scrolling, anything that keeps us from having to feel what's really going on. But if we resist that urge and choose instead to sit with the discomfort, to ask it questions rather than suppress it, we find insight. That discomfort might be trying to tell you that you've stayed too long in a version of your life that no longer fits. It might be pointing you toward a hard conversation you've been avoiding. It might be exposing a value you've compromised or a boundary you've allowed to be crossed. And when you begin to use discomfort as a guide rather than a red flag, you become more attuned to what your inner life is trying to communicate. There's a sacred power in choosing to move toward discomfort instead of away from it. Think about the person who finally decides to tell the truth after years of hiding. That conversation is uncomfortable, but it's liberating. Or the individual who chooses to leave a secure job to pursue a calling. That transition is terrifying, but it's filled with purpose. Or the moment when someone looks in the mirror and admits they've been living for others instead of for themselves. That realization stings, but it opens the door to authenticity. Discomfort is the price of admission to a more honest life. It is not meant to break you. It's meant to break the illusion of safety you've built around who you think you have to be. What's important to understand is that the discomfort you fear is often temporary, but the cost of avoiding it is long-term. Avoiding discomfort means delaying growth. It means staying in places where your potential is stifled. It means living in a cycle of compromise and wondering why you feel stuck. But the moment you start using discomfort as a teacher, you begin to unlock wisdom. You learn what matters to you, what you're willing to fight for, what you're ready to release. Discomfort becomes a compass, showing you where the work is, where the healing is needed, and where the next chapter begins. It takes courage to use discomfort as a guide. It means walking into conversations without knowing the outcome. It means making decisions that others might not understand. It means risking failure, judgment, even heartbreak. But it also means becoming the kind of person who doesn't wait for circumstances to change, because you've learned how to change yourself. You develop resilience. You develop clarity. You develop the kind of confidence that comes not from having all the answers, but from trusting yourself enough to face the unknown. The truth is, discomfort is always a part of becoming. It means you're in motion. It means you're not numb. It means something inside you knows you're made for more. So when it shows up, don't run. Don't silence it. Don't wish it away. Ask it what it's here to show you. Let it be the signal that your life is expanding, your identity is deepening, and your path is unfolding, even if it doesn't look or feel easy. Because ease is not the goal, growth is. And growth always begins where comfort ends, when you begin to recognize the signs, subtle shifts in your energy, restlessness in your routine, a craving for solitude, or discomfort that refuses to be ignored. You're not falling apart. You're being called into alignment. These moments are not random. They're invitations. They are the voice of your inner self asking to be heard, seen, and honored. Most people will overlook them. They'll brush them off, deny them, numb them. But those who choose to pay attention, to lean into the discomfort, to follow their energy, and to honor their own evolution, those people don't just survive change, they lead it. Your awareness is your awakening. And when you embrace these signs with honesty and courage, you begin to transform, not by becoming someone else, but by finally returning to who you really are. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's not confusion. That's clarity in the making. And if you're noticing these signs now, you're not late. You're right on time.